Morning, readers. Hope everyone's having a great time. I hope you're having a beautiful Sunday morning. Hopefully you're having a great weekend too. It's been good. Weather here in South Florida, as I said, I think in my last video, is definitely getting a little bit cooler. Humidity's kind of gone, although yesterday and I think today we're supposed to get really high temperatures. I think we're supposed to have a record high today and get close to the 90s. Like, I'm done with this 90 weather at this moment, but it is what it is. Obviously, I cannot control the weather. You just deal with it. But then tomorrow, I think tomorrow morning or tomorrow night into Tuesday morning, it's supposed to be in the 40s. That's what we have here this time of year in Florida. It's like 40-degree swings. In the morning, it could be in the 40s, and in the afternoon, it could be in the 80s. It's like friggin' what I call bipolar weather, but it is what it is. But beautiful weather. Yesterday I went to the beach with the family. We had a great time. Yeah, we did. Now I don't go in the water. It's a little bit too cold at this moment. If the temperature isn't at least 82 degrees, I'm definitely not stepping in that water. Not going in. But nice beach walk, hanging on the beach with the family in the sand, just talking, enjoying. Yeah, decompression. So not a bad way to spend an evening. I will say that. Hope the same for you. Hopefully you guys are doing something, hanging out, having fun with family, whatever you got to do, enjoy. All right. So what are we doing here today? Today is another character introduction from the Sleepy Hollow incident. This reading is actually going to come from part 2 in this book, in the book 1. All right. And we're going to introduce you today to Detective Stephen Carver. So last time we did Ren the Merciless. I love Ren. I'm even thinking about doing maybe a kind of like a short story, origin story on Ren too. Been thinking about that, kind of putting things together. We'll see what happens, but it's definitely possible. But today's all about Detective Stephen Carver. Now, poor Stephen Carver. He is the one who has been assigned to find out who's doing all these murders in Sleepy Hollow. What you have is, throughout the story, it's kind of like a serial killer that he's on the hunt for. And the serial killer is killing people in very gruesome manners, a lot of which are medieval torture. So this is the first time that he is called in to investigate the first murder that takes place in Sleepy Hollow. Now, Detective Stephen Carver is loosely based on Morgan Freeman's character from the movie Seven. Now, he's that pessimist at this point. He's seen so much in his life and throughout his career as a police officer and detective, homicide detective. And he's kind of like coming to his wit's end, and now this case is going to be very taxing on him for multiple reasons that obviously I'm not going to get into, because those would be spoilers as you get through the novel. But yeah, we're going to get introduced to Detective Stephen Carver today. Hope you enjoy. Now, here's a couple things. What you could be doing is you could just listen to the video, right? Chapters are down below, of course. So you could listen to the video, kind of like if you're an audiobook type of fan. That's perfect. You could do a read along as I'm reading. You could read the chapters that are below too, or you could just put me on mute right now or hit the pause button and just go ahead and read the chapters yourself. Kind of personal preference. But we are taken from, so as I said, it's book 1, part 2 in book 1, and we are on chapter 23. As you see, I said it's below 2. So we're going to do chapter 23 and 26 is what we're going to do today. Well, let's get on with it, all right? Detective Stephen Carver. Enjoy. So chapter 23, part 2. Detective Stephen Carver had seen more than his share of depravity, adversity, and violence in his more than 30 years as a detective in the Sleepy Hollow Police Department. In his time, he'd seen it all. Murder suicides, runaways who wound up bound and gagged and sold to the cartels for sex trafficking. He'd found a few in Mexico just this past winter. Assault and battery, domestic violence, kids taking the bullying way too far, and every once in a while, the victim took matters into their own hands and showed those bullies just what true fear was all about. Yeah, he'd seen a thing or two in his time. So when Detective Carver arrived at the scene of Sleepy Hollow's latest crime, he gave the situation no real credence other than the fact that it was just another crime. Another report to be filed in another family whose heart was about to crack open like a fissure through the moon. Police cruisers were parked up and down North Washington Street in Sleepy Hollow. The uniforms were keeping the public at bay. Carver cased the scene, a toothpick wedged in the corner of his mouth. He scanned across the road and alley. He always assessed the scene first. Sometimes the murderer would be in attendance, watching the police puzzle over the work. Carver was looking for anyone in the crowd that appeared suspicious. There were none. He'd been informed that the body was found late this morning when the fry cook for the Sleepy Hollow Tavern went to toss the garbage. According to the report, he tossed the garbage, then lit up a cigarette when he saw the body, or the remains of a body at least. The cook, a young tyke named Charles Pulov, said he puked all over the alley. He couldn't take the smell nor the gruesome method that had claimed the poor girl's life. Obviously, he wasn't expecting a dead body when he woke up this morning. Carver could see the blood on the back wall of the tavern. He looked up then, his eyes roaming to the heavens and the rolling dark clouds threatening to wash away his evidence. It looked like the storm stalled over the western woods, although he knew it wouldn't hold. He could smell the storm in the air. He stepped to the scene, flagging down a uniformed officer. "Yes, sir." The boy looked like he graduated from high school last year. M. Chavez was written on his uniform. "Tarps," Carver said. "Come again?" Carver looked up. "It's going to piss rain all over us in about a half hour, give or take. I need you to touch base with dispatch and get them to bring tarps large enough to cover the alley. We need to keep the place as dry as possible if we're going to take proper evidence." Chavez looked up to the rolling dark sky. "You got that, officer?" Carver asked as he stepped towards the crime scene. "I'm on it, sir." Carver gave him the thumbs up over his shoulder. "You're the man, thank you." The smell of rain clung to the asphalt as the wind rifled through the street. Carver weaved between the officers standing on the sidewalk, most of whom gave him an unsteady stare, as if they pitied the man for what he was about to see. It could be the old race card, too. Some white officers still took offense that Carver's skin color did not reflect their own, although most accepted him for who he was. A man with a bloodhound nose and an uncanny knack to see between the lines to the truth. Most couldn't give a shit what color he was. Racism being the mark of a devolved mind, a kind of calling card to depravity, sin, and irrational thought fueled by anger towards the self and a false belief in superiority. He paid those devolved cockroaches no mind and went on with his duty as he came closer to the yellow tape strewn across the alley's entrance. The alley was 10 feet wide, splitting the divide between the tavern and a chain-link fence that separated the alley from a vacant lot. He ducked under the tape. A mix of uniformed officers, EMTs, and investigators surrounded the body, talking, snapping pictures, and gathering evidence. The talk was quiet, more like whispers. The storm rolled with booming thunder, and Carver looked up to the sky that darkened the scene. He rolled his toothpick to the opposite side of his mouth, then looked at the body lying on the ground next to the back of the tavern. Like a bloodhound, he stepped towards the body, and the officers parted like the Red Sea. The victim, a female no more than 25 years old, lied on her back, looking up at the dark sky. Her eyes were wide open, and her face carried a surprised expression filled with horror. Carver's first clue. More than likely, she didn't know the murdering bastard. The expression reflected that the perp surprised the victim. Carver squatted beside the body. There was a gaping hole in the victim's chest. Her heart had been removed. How? Removing a heart would take some type of tool, some medical instrument to crack the chest bone, but her expression is off. If a tool was used, she would have known it was coming. Her teeth would be grinding, but her mouth was wide open as if in shock. And this gaping hole suggests someone's fist punched through the chest. He scanned around the body. No blood. Maybe this was done somewhere else and the body dumped in this location. But why? Something to do with the tavern? Carver chewed on his toothpick, studying the wall with a pentagram drawn in blood, and the strange words written above the pentagram. Humanitas finis und novum principium. Now what the hell does that mean? Humanity's end is a new beginning. Carver looked over his shoulder at Detective Montgomery. "You sure?" "I called it in, sir. took some time, but dispatcher was able to decipher the meaning. It's Latin. He gestured to the writing beside the body where the words Initium Novum were written above her head. And that one means a new beginning. Carver nodded and returned to the body. He studied her chest, and the fear forever plastered in her pupils. It didn't make sense, not one iota. A procedure like that would take time, but her expression turned his gut and tingled his instincts. Carver stood up, his eyes on the pentagram and Latin phrase written in blood before he turned to Montgomery. Go to the hospital, find a heart surgeon, and find out what it would take for someone to punch through a chest bone. Montgomery looked at him as if he were crazy. You think someone punched a hole in her chest and tore out her heart? It's a bit of a stretch, don't you think? Carver rolled his toothpick into the corner of his mouth. When it comes to murder, in my experience at least, never assume something can't be done. Montgomery nodded. His lips curled into his mouth. Okay, I'm on it. Carver looked at the sky and the rolling clouds inching closer to his crime scene. And find out where my tarps are. End chapter. So murder is going on in Sleepy Hollow. Chest ripped out. Heart ripped out of the chest. Interesting. I do that often in my novels, I notice. A lot of hearts get ripped out of people's chests, and it's like a mainstay throughout most of my stories. I should write a blog on that and really get into it. Why I enjoy eating hearts. Interesting. Maybe. We'll see. We'll get on that as soon as possible. Okay, so now we're moving over to, we almost moved, but we're moving over to chapter 26, as I said down below, and still going with Detective Carver at his crime scene behind the Sleepy Hollow Tavern. Chapter 26. Detective Carver watched as firemen raised the tarp over his crime scene, just in time, too. The storm was about to unleash holy hell on Sleepy Hollow. Forensic officers were working at lightning speed, trying to beat the storm. He rolled that toothpick to the corner of his mouth while scanning every fine detail of the crime scene. He knew the area well and was certain the girl had been killed somewhere else and the body dumped in this location. Considering last night was a Friday, the street had to be jumping with people. The fact that someone could get away with dumping a body in the middle of all that chaos was against the odds. Plus, he was certain the bar staff had to come out every so often to smoke a cigarette or throw out garbage, and would have noticed a dead girl in the alley. The bars closed in this area by 4 a.m., although he knew some stayed open for at least a few more hours, officially closing just before dawn, which didn't give a lot of time before twilight beamed across the city, illuminating any would-be murdering pig and his body-dumping exploits. He wondered what the medical examiner would determine was the time of death. Considering how fresh the body looked, he was certain it hadn't been more than a few hours. Carver looked over at the body that was now being zipped up into a plastic body bag and brought to the coroner. He'll be making a visit there later today once he's finished his investigation. But who is she, and how is she connected to the tavern? There was no identification found on the body, and none of the bar staff could identify the victim. They all had the same story. They'd never seen her before. Perhaps she's a runaway, caught in the dregs with some unsavory characters. But what's with the hole in the chest? Carver was almost certain his hunch about punching a hole in the girl's chest was inaccurate, considering he was skeptical that a man could punch a hole through a chest bone, even if the son of a bitch was hopped up on speed. Plus, the fact that the hole was clean and perfectly round indicated the tool was used to perform the surgery, which led to the next question. What did they do with the heart? Detective Carver? Carver turned on his heels. Detective Montgomery was walking towards him. Perfect timing. What'd you find? Montgomery stopped walking and flipped a small notebook he was holding open. Spoke to a heart doctor, and he assured me that punching a hole through someone's chest would take the strength of 10 men. Not that it couldn't happen with repeated thrusts, but that would take a bit of time to accomplish. He also said there would be additional bruising and, considering the chest bone could splinter, the possibility of additional blood from the murderer's fist would be found on the body. He was shaking his head. Doesn't seem possible, detective. But he was put off by the hole in the chest. Couldn't fathom what type of tool would have been used. He'd never heard of a tool to accomplish a perfectly round opening. It's a puzzle he couldn't piece together. He flipped the notebook closed. Carver gnawed on his toothpick, thinking. It's a strange one, Detective. Montgomery looked over at the crime scene. The EMTs wheeled the body away on a gurney as thunder rolled across the sky and lightning pumped within dark clouds. The wind blew fierce with a howl through the street, and raindrops fell in thick strands across the tarp. "What are you thinking?" asked Montgomery. Carver turned to the crime scene that was now getting doused in rain. Those tarps were doing their job, but unfortunately the rain was dripping down the tavern's wall, seeping through the crevices in the tarp and across the pentagram. Carver watched as the blood streamed towards the ground. He's grateful he had forensics dust for prints on the pentagram when he first arrived. Grateful they completed their examination and those results were headed off to the medical examiner's office. Another howling wind whipped across the alley as the rain arrived in droves. Detective Carver didn't know what to think, not yet at least. This was an enigma, and he will need to puzzle it out. But for now, he said the only thing that made the most sense. "I'm thinking we should get out of the rain," and he did just that, moving beneath the tarp to continue whatever investigation he could. He rolled that toothpick to the corner of his mouth, his skin moist as the wind howled beneath the tarp, watching the rain erase his evidence. It made the building look like it was bleeding. It's your first introduction to Detective Carver, and obviously he goes on one hell of a journey throughout this entire novel. That is a definite fact. I feel bad for that man. He just wants to solve these murders. People are being dumped, medieval torture, hearts are ripped out. Strange stuff is going on throughout all of Sleepy Hollow, and he is the one man who's in charge of trying to figure it out. Yeah, that's a lot of weight to carry on your shoulders for one person. That's a fact. But that's Detective Stephen Carver. Listen, go ahead. The chapters are down there. As we all know, you can pick up Sleepy Hollow Incident anywhere at this moment. So go to Amazon. It's on KU. I got print books, discount print books, and limited edition hardcovers and paperbacks signed in number 2. All those links are down there. Enjoy the book. Have at it. Have a beautiful Sunday. And I will see you next week. I think we are getting introduced to Jerry next week, if memory serves me right. Yeah, good old Jerry Hardwood. Anyway, that'll be an interesting one. And I think Ren is in those chapters too, his beginning chapters. Close to it. Yeah, no, he is. So a little Ren and Jerry interaction will be interesting for next week. So have an awesome week. Be safe, be sound, be secure, be healthy, be awesome, and keep friggin' reading. Love you guys. Bye-bye.